And welcome, everyone. Please do trickle in as you can, as people do with these online sessions. My name is Joel Elliott, Marketing Manager here at Folk Music Ontario, and this is the third edition of the Canadian Home Studio Tour with and I will give you an embarrassingly positive bio read after I acknowledge our sponsors. We have SOCAN to thank, Factor, Canadian Heritage, the Ontario Arts Council, and Ontario Creates. Also, I don't know where you're listening from, but here in Ottawa, we broadcast from the traditional and unceded lands of the Algonquin, Anishinaabe peoples. As I said, this is the third edition. Please do visit our YouTube page to see recordings of our past two sessions. And if you got to duck out or maybe missed a bit of this, no worries. It's up there on the YouTube, hopefully by tomorrow morning. Welcome, It's good to see you.
Great to see you, man. Good to be here.
Good to be here. I'm going to embarrass you now by reading from your bio, because I was going to go, I was skimming through it, and I'm like, okay, what kind of things can I pick out? But it's just all so positive. Check it out. His first album, that means you, as in I's first album, We Made It Through the Wreckage in 2016, broke the Billboard Spotify charts and landed you on NPR's Tiny Desk. Awesome. While his second album, In Our Time, 2018, debuted #2 on iTunes, #1 on Amazon, wow. And you did a captivating live performance on CBS. Oh my goodness. Ultimately, culminating in the 2018, of course, FMO fans will know, Recording Artist of the Year at the FMO Awards. Then, it goes on. You get a sold-out U.S. tour with platinum artist Lauren Daigle, no less than six places on the 2018 Grammy ballot, including Album of the Year, Best Americana Album, and Best Americana Roots Song and Performance, and a Juno Award nomination in the category of Contemporary Roots Album of the Year. You just patting yourself on the back over here, my friend.
I don't know who said that to you.
I think you did. That was from your bio, and it's a great place to start. Tell people about who you are and what your career is all about.
Man, so I'm a singer-songwriter, just a regular dude, and I run my own label called 22nd Century, and we work with a group out of Nashville called 30 Tigers, and they do a marketing distribution, and it's kind of like a family operation. Me and my wife is my manager, and she helps me run the label. And we release our music through 22nd Century. So my first album was called We Made It Through the Wreckage, which had that song that kind of accidentally landed on Billboard, which is called Oh Sweet Day. A lot of my fan base knows me through Oh Sweet Day. And the second record was the first record I released on 30 Tigers officially, which was called In Our Time. And we had some great successes in the sync and licensing world with that one. So I'm just like a pretty, not generic, I was going to say simple folk singer. I play acoustic guitar, sing, write my own songs. I pretty much write all my own songs, and there's a lot there, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Well, I liked your gist, my friend. What about before 2016? So We Made It Through the Records was your first album, and it obviously caught people's attention. How were you creating music leading up to that?
I had a mentor named Orrin Isaac, and he's a close friend of mine now, and we recorded together my first two EPs. So I always tell the story about how I came to him with a bunch of songs, and it was probably 30 songs that I wrote before I even met him, years before I met him, and I was holding on to these songs, and I thought they were so special. And he was like, I think you should throw all these songs out. They're not that good. And I had the moment at that time to be like, forget this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or kind of take it in and consider what he said. And I think that was the beginning of me really looking at myself, my music, and my writing differently, and trying to push myself to become a better writer. So he was gracious enough to record my first EP. My wife and I used to organize events and shows in the city. One of them was called Oh So Beautiful, to support independent musicians. It was kind of like giving back to the musicians and taking back our power of the stage. And we did a American Idol style competition. It wasn't a competition, it was an audition process, right? To get people for the show. And Orrin was one of the panelists who helped us judge. And we just built a relationship from there. And that's how we kind of started working together. So my first EP was called just called I. My second EP was called Indie Soul. And I think just working with Orrin in those early stages in his studio, I just kind of started growing and realizing okay, how to get myself to the next level, how to think about my music as a craft and not just I'm writing songs for myself, you know what I mean? So
Sounds like you were pretty involved in the community. You're in TO, but like, so you put together festivals around it. That's very folky, by the way.
Well, shows.
What else? Like, how else are you guys involved in the community in TO?
I mean, I'm from Brampton and originally born and raised in Brampton, and at the time we were just really, we just wanted to like connect with musicians as much as can. There was a lot of like showcases, open mics at the time. You know, obviously right now with COVID, everything's shut down, so it's hard to really connect as much as we did before. But that was more so just about like, you know, we found that there were, at that time there's a lot of pay to play gigs, right? I don't know if they still do that. It's very difficult to do that now. But you know, prior to the pandemic, I don't know if people are still doing that. But at that time, like there were pay to play gigs everywhere. When you're first starting out, a lot of artists were going to Craigslist looking for shows, and it's not a great way to book shows. But you know, our artists are vulnerable in the sense that we just want to get on stage, and there are people who know that, and they'll exploit that vulnerability by saying, hey, we got this big show for you, here's 10 tickets, pay me for these tickets, and if you sell these tickets for $20 each, you will make $10 on every ticket. Look, that's a great deal. You make 100, whatever, right? So I think we did like one or two of them, and the ones that we did were not even that cringy, I guess you would say. One was with a guy who said he was from Universal Music, and when I looked into it later, I found that he was just like an editor or something. He didn't even have a real signing power at Universal. But that one was pretty big though. Like there were a lot of people there. And then the other one was a guy who, in hindsight, it was pay to play, but he was trying to do it in a way that was artistic. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he meant to do pay to play. I just don't think people know how to make money doing shows. It's very hard. So at that time, we're just like, you know, forget it. We'll do our own shows, and we'll like put together our own shows. And I was very active, very vocal on Craigslist, calling out these pay to play guys. You know what I mean? With my
Musical pyramid schemes is what they are, basically.
exactly. So I think that's, and then after that, we started focusing on my wife and I, you know, just our career and our music because it's difficult to put on shows. It's difficult to make money in venues. It's difficult to get people interested in up and coming artists. You know what I mean? There has to be a cultural, a community vibe around it. If you're just collecting artists and saying, "Hey guys, let's get all the people to a show," it makes sense. But if you're running in a circuit in Toronto, and maybe I'm rambling here, but and doing multiple shows after multiple shows, how many shows can you really expect your family and friends to come to, right? So, in hindsight, it's all make perfect sense. Now, in hindsight, the first band that comes to my head is Kings of Leon. They come to Toronto probably once a year, and they sell out this show. Then they go to next city once a year. And if you're really good and you do a small enough or smaller venue, you can do like two shows in a week or one show in a week. But artists don't realize that. So I was very vocal about like trying to let artists know that you can't just always play in your own city. You got to travel and get around. And that's when I, you know, got around and started traveling. Went to the UK for a while. Did the Via Rail Artists on Board program, and I realized the importance of getting on the road and traveling and performing. It's you got to win your hometown, which is why I connected with Folk Music Ontario. But it's hard to constantly do shows in your hometown.
That's a good point because like I mean like the GTA is a big well the biggest area in Canada, but it doesn't matter where you are or how big your city is. You can only play there so many times in one time period before people are like, maybe I'll catch the next one. But that's a nice segue. Like you guys were doing a lot, like you're building in the community, you're releasing albums, you're touring about internationally, and then boom, something happened, a panorama, I like to call it, in 2020. Whereabouts were you? Like, were you busy in the studio? Were you out of the country? Where were you at when all this went down?
So I got off tour with an artist named Lauren Daigle. We had almost on tour with her for almost 2 years, pretty much. You know what I mean, on and off. And the last show I did was this 2019 December in Hawaii, and that was the finale, right? So that was like a great send off, beautiful experience, and it was just me and my drummer opening up for her, and it was just great. And when I came back, I was pretty much on break from touring so much, and I was planning out my new record. And I was gonna work with her producer, her music director, and her co-writer, who was on tour as well. He's also her drummer, and we were planning out this record, trying to figure it out. And then you start hearing things about the pandemic, and then I think it was March when I call it V-Day because it's when the stock market crashed and then went back up immediately in a couple of days. So if anybody follows stocks. The stock market crashed on March 16th, I think it was, and I was like, okay, something's going on here. And but I was in my head, I was like, I'm still going to Nashville. I record all my records in Nashville, and so I'm still going to
Mhm.
Nashville. I'll just drive by myself or fly by myself. Usually, I go with my family, entire family, get in the car, drive down, do the record, and it just didn't look like things were changing. Lockdown started being implemented, and I was like, okay, this is different. I don't know what's about to happen. And you feel like, as an artist, your first reaction is like, you think about yourself. You're like, oh my, I can't record my record. I can't do my thing, my this. But you don't realize the whole world is being affected. Most people's first reaction is honestly selfish. You know what I mean? Until you realize the gravity of the situation and the severity of it, and you're like, okay, this is bigger than I thought. So the good thing about that though was, if anything good came out of the pandemic, was reflecting on what I created already, what I thought I was going to record in the studio, and started continuing to write more music and write new songs. And two of the songs that I wrote during that pandemic, after April when I was supposed to record, are two of the singles that will be released off this record, right? Also, just health wise, being on tour and on tour buses, eating, you get breakfast, lunch, dinner, after show food. I put on a little weight, not crazy, but I put on a little weight, and I just wasn't as healthy as I once was, and I was like, I gotta get healthy again. So I started like getting really active, working out, losing a little bit of weight, just toning up my muscles and whatnot, and just also reflecting on my career as a package and on my career as an artist, and saying, okay, when I come out this time with this record, what did I not do on my last records that I can do on this one? How can I present myself on this record and really make sure it's impactful? You know what I mean? Because our album campaign is a lot of effort. It's a lot of resources going into it, a lot of money going into it. And you want to succeed and you want to recoup your own money. You know what I mean? Because I don't have a major label just throwing money at me. A lot of what we put into it is our own money, our own investment. So, so yeah, and so that's kind of like where I was at, and just kind of realized, okay, I have time now. I looked at it as at first I was devastated a little bit, and then I looked at it as, okay, now you have time. And I shout out to Orrin Isaacs, who, again, who was like, the good thing about this, if there's anything good about it, is that you're not the only one who's laying out right now. Everybody is. So just keep working and keep focusing on how to get ahead of the curve when things start up again, because they will start up again. You know what I mean? We're
Mhm.
not going to be in a pandemic for the rest of our life. It doesn't make any sense, right? So that was great advice, and I think we just hunkered down and really said, okay, let's really study here, focus here, and put this package together so that when we come out with this record, we make an impact, right?
It's a good idea, as well as like some good advice for everyone. Like, now is a time for a deep dive. Like, what works, what doesn't. Actually, we've been talking here at FMO about sustainability in a past couple of events, and I want to pick up on what you were saying before. For your past two full-on albums, you traveled quite, like, it's drivable, but it's still international, to another country, all the way down to Nashville, to record. Um, and you were touring internationally as well. Are you thinking more about the, let's say, climate impact of touring, your own personal impact on your health? What are you thinking about as far as touring in the future?
Right now, currently,
Yeah.
well, I'm not even. I mean, I'm not touring internationally until next year. So right now it's more like within Canada stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I feel like there's certain things I've implemented. So I was able to record a record during the pandemic. So there was a period of time, and I'll say this before I go into that, where we thought restrictions were going to be lifted. In August, everybody's like, okay, people can fly again. Things
Hmm.
are easing up. You just have to quarantine and come back and do tests and whatnot. So on August 1st, the first flight to Nashville was available. I got on that flight and recorded my album with Paul and recorded a duet with Lauren Daigle, and it all just worked out that I was able to do it in that time period. It took about 2.5 weeks to record all this stuff. So I got the record done. So that was great, and I was in Nashville, and it was a culture shock because, I'm going to the grocery store wearing a mask. Everybody's wearing masks. We're social distancing, and you go to Nashville and like it's not. People are not thinking of it like that. Like no one's wearing masks, no one's social distancing, and you're talking about the pandemic, and people are still skeptical. And I watched like the producer go from, oh, like there's nothing wrong with it, to like, using a hand sanitizer more regularly, and like it was pretty interesting. So now I'm more focused on building the audience through online, my online presence. We are planning our tour schedule. We do have a release coming out this year, so we're slowly starting the engine again. But I think what someone said to me recently was that what the pandemic did for artists is it made the music important again, right? Because you can't tour. So everything was about if you're not touring, you're not going to get any press, you're not going to get any appearances, you're not going to get on radio, you're not going to get anything. So everything was about touring, touring, touring. But now certain things can rise to the surface that's about the music because not everybody's ready to tour yet. People want to jump back on it, but it's like I think the artists that really are going to have an impact are the ones that have create great music and have a solid touring schedule, a planned out touring schedule. So I'm not trying to go to the States. I mean, we might have to go in the fall, but for Americana Fest.
Mm.
But I'm not in a rush to go to the States. However, my marketing and distributing company at 30 Tigers, they wanted me to push my record to the next year because they're really bent on having a tour schedule still, right? But I think the world is a little different now. I think the way people operate and take in music is a little different. I think the industry hasn't changed per se, but I think people are going to be more precious about what they invest their time into now, right?
I think we're going to see more regional tours, right? And we're going to see more Canadian artists just like checking out parts of Canada that may maybe not have played before. Have you played almost all of Canada yourself?
I haven't been to Newfoundland yet,
Mm.
and I haven't been to the Yukon.
Mhm.
I think those are the only two provinces I haven't been to.
Those are the two extreme sides, yes. You've been to the two extreme
Right, there's not a lot of opportunities to perform out there. So Newfoundland, like it was difficult to book a tour, to book a show out there,
sides.
and when the places that we would be able to book, like I wouldn't have made any money on the flight itself. So like it was like I can't do that. Like the flights to Newfoundland are pretty expensive compared to other flights.
I'll call the feds and tell them to put a bridge in so we can drive to
About
Newfoundland.
that, right.
Future.
The bridge is going to be. I drove to PEI, and you
Mhm.
go in. The bridge going in is free.
Mhm.
To get you coming out, you got to pay like $60 to get out of PEI. And I was like, what? What's this? Extortion.
That's how sneaky gets you. Let's talk about recording, my friend, because yes, you were going down to Nashville, but obviously we can't go to the States, at least indefinitely.
Right.
And so a lot of people, hence the home studio tour, have started collecting what we were referring to as doodads
Got it.
for their home studio. So before we start looking at your doodads, is there anything you've been able to do at home that you weren't necessarily doing before, like either recording scratch tracks or vocals or like that type of thing, collabs?
Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with the first change that I made was online streaming. You know what I mean? I was doing a lot of stuff off my iPhone, and I have a gimbal somewhere. I know where it is. You just set up the iPhone here, and then you do your Instagram shows, and I was doing a lot of stuff on Instagram. And then my mentor again, he's been because he's a music director. He does a lot of sound live stuff. He was like, "Look, you got to step up your video game because your live streaming game because your competition." And he always says this, and I've said this for a while too. Your competition are not your friends, they're not your peers. They're everybody you are entertained by. You know what I mean? So if you're watching YouTubers and you love their videos, what are they doing to make their videos look good? Because that's what you have to do to get to that. So I kind of took some time to study video streaming gear and get that together. I did some recording at home. So I have two computers that I use. One is my regular computer that I do everything on, and then one is my old computer which I do a lot of my demos on. And I was reluctant to do it, but I had to record some new vocals for it wasn't really an album. It was like I call it Unarchived, which was like a record that I put out that just was songs that I haven't released yet, or songs that were like just sitting in my hard drive. And the guy who mixed it, Ian Bodaisy, said maybe some of these vocals can be done better because some of them have like some distortion in them. Because we did that a lot of those songs analog to tape. So the demos for those songs that weren't released, there was like some of the vocals were distorted. I didn't go back and redo those vocals, so I'll push this back a little bit. You probably can't. Actually, I'll bring it down.
Goodness.
I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, look at this. Fancy stand, my friend.
I got this on for sale at Long McQuaid. It was like I don't think anybody wants to buy it, but I was like, let me grab this because one day I'm gonna. This is what I used in a couple of the studios. But this microphone, I drove about 40 minutes outside of. Let me turn my volume down a little bit. 40 minutes outside of Nashville to get the last one of these in America. This is a Telefunken AR, I think 57 or 47. Let me just make sure I know what AR-51, right? This is the mic I used to record my newest record, and my producer said that's the best mic. I recorded Grammy-winning records on this mic, and it felt great when I recorded on it and when I used it. And he's like, if you can get your hand on one of these mics, you'll never need another mic. You can record voice on it. You can record guitar on it. It's not a cheap mic, but I got it in Tennessee. I won't say Nashville. I got it in Tennessee. Drove all the way out. I don't even know what city I was in at a Guitar Center and got this mic. So I was reluctant to record at home because I don't have the greatest soundproofing that major studios have or even professionally built home studios have. But having this microphone, I was like, I bought this. I gotta do it. I gotta use it. So I recorded some new vocals on it, and I don't know if you could see. So anybody listening, I'll give you a bit of a tour. So I'm gonna switch my camera real quickly.
Oh yes, this is a first for the home video tour or the home studio tour, friends. Check this out. Multi-camera.
Oh, I did switch. There you go. All right, I'm on a leash here, so just be.
C'est bon.
So, if you look over there, you see those black drapes. Those are just like receiving, not what we call them, moving blankets that they use for like packaging when you go like when you're traveling or moving, right? And I customly got them made to put rivets in them. So I'll go a little closer. Sorry if it's gonna make you guys dizzy. Can you see that at all?
Yeah.
So you see those rivets? I had them put those rivets in it so that I could hang them up.
Mm.
And then I had to like put some hooks in the ceiling there. Oh, I disconnected. Sorry guys.
C'est bon.
Are we back yet? No. Yeah, I can't go too far. I just realized that. There we go. So I'll try to do it from here. So look for it. So like if you look at the ceiling there, you'll see like little hooks in the ceiling there. So in order to get more sound dampening, I took those moving blankets. I keep calling them receivers. I don't know why. Those moving blankets from that wall and then hung them around it and kind of made it enclosed. I'm losing my mind here. This is the first time I'm going through cameras.
It's a tour of all your doodads. It's fine.
I should have practiced before I did this. I made it enclosed for me so that I can dampen the sound because I think I sent him an audio just using those panels that I got at a major discount. So one thing the pandemic did as well was in the first month or two, the discounts on things were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you looked at anybody, like if you watch any like investing videos or like how to get through this pandemic videos, they were saying save your money, make sure you have this much money of because we don't know when this is going to end, so make sure you have this much saved up so that if everything stops and we go into apocalypse, you have money saved up and you'll be fine. And I looked at it as this is not going to last forever. You know what I mean? We have a huge amount of savings. We don't spend a lot of money. Everything's like 50% off. What do I need right now? And I bought those things, and they became investments that because if I buy these things now, the price is like crazy again, right? So these were like more than 50% off, and they came from Ukraine, and these are sound dampening panels that I was able to get shipped. They took forever to arrive, but once I got them, I put them up, but they're still not like professionally studio grade sound dampening. So I used those blankets, make a big difference, and I hung those up and recorded some vocals here. So that was the only time that I felt comfortable using vocals for something that I was going to release. Otherwise, everything I recorded was for demos.
Gotcha.
And for listening, just to hear them out, just to hear my ideas, and to practice for when I actually go to a professional studio. And when I say professional, I don't mean like a big major studio, professional studio. Every studio I've worked in has been the home to the producer.
Yes.
Right, are owned by the producer, except for my newest project where we worked mainly out of the producer's studio. But when the band came in, we had a external studio, which is like an independent but like beautiful studio. It's called Smokestack in Nashville. So Yeah, so that was the main thing I recorded and I had to get pushed to do that. Like he had to 'cause for me to say, okay, this is gonna land on, because another part of recording at home is mental. You know what I mean? You gotta have, sometimes you don't know what the best take is, and sometimes you think I can do a better take, but you already did your best take, and the feeling and emotion is there, but you're hearing for like the tuning or how perfectly I sang this word or this line. But sometimes the producer will let you hear the emotion and be like, no, the emotion here is more important than how vocally tuned you were. So sometimes I like to have a third party there, to help me figure that out, because I can be a vocal perfectionist sometimes and do takes over and over and over again, and the more takes you do, sometimes you lose that feeling. So in this case, I had my wife sitting to the side, and she was telling me, keep that one or don't keep that one. And then sometimes we get to arguments. I'm like, no, this is better.
Get
But
like the thumbs up, thumbs down gladiator thing.
it's kind of like. But the guy who mixed it in, he's a Canadian guy from Toronto, and he did a great job in just kind of giving me feedback and being patient with me sending stuff over. So that was the first time I felt confident, like something that's on Spotify that I record, or Apple Music that I recorded in here with my gear, is out there for people to hear. And you might not know the difference. You might be able to tell exactly which songs were recorded here, which ones weren't. But I think he did a great job in doing it.
Well, I'm glad you showed the moving blankets as well, because we all put our best foot forward, right? Those sound dampening things that you got from overseas look fantastic. Moving blanket, I mean, they look like moving blankets, but at the end of the day, if it works to dampen the sound, like I've seen people put up carpet, egg cartons, we've all seen that as well.
Yeah,
Make with what you got.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's not like, at the end of the day, nobody cares. Like, if the music sounds great, nobody cares how it was created. Like, if there's all these stories. Like, you'll go into major studios, and they have all the gear, all the processing, all the plugins in the world, and then they'll be like, "Can you just record this part in the bathroom?" You know what I mean? Like, we just want that bathroom sound. You know what I mean? Or like something, or like, "Can you just lie on the floor in this little room here?" Like, we just like, they have these weird, quirky things that have nothing to do with the amount of money they spent on it, that they just love. You know what I mean? So it's not about how much money you spend; it's how you use what you have. You know what I mean? So the moving blankets, that was my earliest sound booth. You know what I mean? And I still use them to this day. So
I mean, well, if it works, it works. You mentioned things about collaborations, and this is a big thing that's been gone for the pandemic. People who are in bigger bands, for example, like I have a 7-piece band, and I've not seen them since last March. It's been hard. I see a lot of music anyway here in Ottawa. I'm not sure about Toronto, but most of the music I've been seeing released this year has been EDM or hip hop or things that people were traditionally creating at home or with one other person anyway. How about your collaboration process? Like you said, you've got a mentor, people you work with in Nashville, people within the TO area, your wife, of course. How has that collab process changed in a virtual space for you?
I mean, like, it's funny. Like, my first collaboration was when I went to Nashville. Like, the first song that I would consider a duet was when I went to Nashville. I don't do a lot of, ironically, like, I work a lot out of Nashville, but I don't co-write a lot. I don't like, because my songs are so personal. Like, I kind of like to sit in my own space and write. Usually, like, here with my guitar, and so the collaboration side hasn't affected me as much. But the good part about it is, like, for example, on the record, that's the one that's coming out. George Sarah did the mix on it. You know what I mean? And he was so his resume is kind of great. He's worked on every Shawn Mendes record. He's one of Shawn Mendes' earliest engineers, mixing engineers. Did stuff with James Bay, Ed Sheeran, and I was lucky to have him work on this record. You know what I mean? Very extremely lucky. So the collaboration in that sense was me communicating back and forth with him, and his excitement for this record and passion for this record. Like, we were able to get on Zoom calls, have a lot of phone calls. So in that sense, I felt the collaborative spirit very strongly, and I envy people who are able to get on a Zoom call and have a co-writing session. You know what I mean? I haven't done it. My producer recommended it. He's like, we could do that, and he makes it seem like it's no big deal. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of a soloist. I'm kind of an outsider in a lot of ways. So the collaboration side didn't affect me, and when I did the collaboration, it just happened to work out where I was able to do my record and that was a very short window, because once we came back, everything shut down again. You know what I mean? Like it was like you're not you can't go to your family's house for Christmas or for like, everything went crazy, right? So, but I feel for people who are in bands who have who's live is a big part of my performance. You know what I mean? My drummer is, I haven't seen, well, I've seen him a couple times, but I haven't like we haven't made music since Hawaii probably. You know what I mean? That was December 2019, and I had a call with him last night just to fill him in on where I'm at now, what's going on with the career. But we haven't made music, and I could tell he's itching. You know what I mean? And I remember asking him a question. I said, "What would you do if this was it? Like, would you do if this was music for the rest of our lives?" And he's like, I retire. This is like, I don't want to make music online. Like, that's not, and that's his path. You know what I mean? So he's just like, when he said that, I was like, man, it's like, you know, that's a deep thing. Like, he's a drummer. Like, his joy is being in a band and playing with people. And like, I guess he can send me tracks and I could sing over the tracks and add the tracks to whatever. But like, his passion is playing live and going on tour. And he said he'd retire. So I was like, that's like a rude awakening for me. But yeah, it's the sad reality is that the world is not favoring collectives. Like the world is not favoring groups. It's not like the good thing about technology is that the speed at which we can create and do things should be faster. The speed at which we can send our product to our users or to our fans is almost close to lightning speed. You know what I mean? I don't know if this is streaming on YouTube right now, but there could be someone in Ukraine watching this and just getting whatever they want to get out of this. The hard part about that is it's also favoring individualism. You know what I mean? And the idea of, well, I can do this myself. You know what I mean? Or I can do this here myself, and you can do your part there yourself, and then we bring it together. Not everybody connects that way. Not everybody works that way. But it's one of those things where you're like, well, things are always changing all the time. And it's like, do you fight that system, which is ultimately encroaching on everything, or do you try to embrace it and try to adjust to it? So after this record, I'm putting in my head the next phase for me is collaborative songwriting, doing more collaborations, doing stuff like that, because I don't have any desire to fight the way things are going, because collaboration is not a bad thing. And if technology allows me to make a song with someone in Sweden, there might be something beautiful about that. As long as it's a good song and it's a good music and it's you're not losing the feeling of it. You know what I mean? The band, when they sit in that studio and they're all making that music together, I don't think we're gonna completely have music like that. Or Roberta Flack, when she's in that studio with her 4-piece band, and you can feel the drums on the upright bass. You know what I mean? We may not hear music like that again. You know what I mean? But I do think music is still rich. I do think people are creating amazing songs. And every so often somebody will come around and say, I'm going to do this all analog because that's how it should be. And they blow us all out of the water. And then you have this wave of analog music. But I think we should have everything in our arsenal if possible, right?
Embrace the new. I like to say that people like our fans don't necessarily take in our art in all the same way. Some
Right.
people may never see you live and only watch what you put on YouTube, for example.
Right. Absolutely.
Let's go back to missing the stage, because you're right. Like, I mean, it's not just people in orchestras, of which there's a few here in Ottawa, or like I've talked to a lot of friends in the musical theater or just theater scene. That's art created in a group and best seen right there. What are you missing about the stage?
Oh man, it's. I think my fans and my audience, you know what I mean. You get to know me better than you've ever known me by through the stage. That's that connection. Even like the difference between doing a stream on Facebook and a stream on Instagram, and then doing a Zoom stream where like everybody in the audience, there's cameras are on and I can see everybody. It's more work to set up a Zoom stream. It's more work to set up a Zoom show. But when I could see everybody who's there and talk to them and feed off of their energy, you can't replace that. You know what I mean? There's nothing. It's like the worst thing that I do, and I have to do these every so often, is pre-record a show and then send it for somebody to watch it later, because I don't know. I can't read your energy, so it's all about the performance, and I just have to. It's like recording a song. You know what I mean? So for me, live is I hope to get back to it really soon. You know, I mean, I'm doing some live stuff in and around Canada, but I know when I get on that stage again, it's gonna feel like you're not gonna realize how much you've missed it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's everything to me. Live is everything to me, and I don't think people really understand my artistry until they see me live, hear my stories, and connect with me on that level.
Well, I think it also leads to a different type of performance as well, right? Because like as artists, we feed off the energy and the flow and the weather and the sound. And you were talking about playing on Instagram before, and how did that feel the first time you did it? And then your song ended, and
Yeah, you got to learn how to like. One thing I've learned through I like Instagram more now, but you got to find ways to create artificial interactions or artificial connections, meaning it's all artificial because it's information being sent through a device and being received on the other end, right? So it's not like I can reach out and touch the audience. It's not like someone who's a big fan of mine can just be showered in my vocal spit. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen. It's digital stuff. So ways that I found that work is giving the audience something to type or giving them something to like say, hey guys, if you hear me, give me a thumbs up. So when you start seeing those thumbs up, you know people are responding to you, and that response creates like endorphins in your brain where you're like, okay, yes, I'm getting a response, beautiful. All right, hey guys, you know, just let me know you love the song. Give me your prayer hands or give me your praise hands, and people will do that, or give me your hearts and whatever. And people do that, and it's artificial, but it creates some kind of stimulus in your brain that makes you know that people are responding to what you're doing. You know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes that's what people miss when it comes to these streaming is that they're not asking their audience to interact with them. They're just looking at you're looking at people looking at you. You know what I mean? You're looking at the comments, if there are any, rolling through, or you're looking at the names pop up, and you got to get those names to do something. You know, what we fail to remember is that, you know, I don't know how this might show my age. When I was young, you know, ICQ was a thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Or
mhm.
MSN Messenger was a thing. Or like, you know, Yahoo Chat was a thing. And we all found ways to get excited about those things. You know what I mean? And we all found ways to have interactions or to like, if you got angry at someone and they were like trolling you back then, you knew there was some tension, even though you can't see his eyes. You know what I mean? So we have to get back to that wonderment of when technology first came on board, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. But like when all that stuff came out, a lot of us were using that stuff and having hours on there, having grand old times, talking to our friends. And then guess what we do after we get off of those things? We go out and play soccer with our friends, the same friends, and it's like it's nothing changed. You know what I mean? I just think the way, you know, like society is pushing us more and more into the technology.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people benefiting off of us being more and more isolated into the technology. But I think that those of us who thrive off of the live don't get lost in feeling like I only need live. Like the technology is there, use it to your best ability, and when the live is there, show up. You know what I mean, and make sure that people are loving what you do live, so that when you go online, they're responding and commenting and like, I miss you. Like those comments are great. Like I miss you. I saw you here. I'm all the way from Czech Republic. You know, wherever. Like you know, those comments are amazing. So it's hard because I sometimes hate streaming live shows, but I'm learning to find a way to engage with the audience, and I think that's the most important part.
I'm glad you mentioned like people coming in from like way afar, like Czech Republic, because there's an opportunity here moving forward, right? Like we may not be able to have, or we may not be able to afford to tour Europe, for example. But if you find out you got a selection of fans in Czech Republic, why not do an online show specifically for them?
Right, right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You gotta, and I think what is also important is that you got to plan these things out too. Like the same effort you put into a live show, you got to put into an online stream. It's not like sometimes you can just be candid and throw your camera on and say, "Hey guys," you know what I mean. But I think when you plan it out and you have like an expectation that people expect you to come on live, there's more impact to it. You know what I mean? And if you do a live every day or every week, your numbers aren't going to always be as high as they were the first time because people are going to get exhausted. So these are all things you got to think about it. But yeah, definitely connecting to audiences abroad is more possible than ever. You know what I mean? You know, so you just got to find a way to excite your audiences wherever they are, right?
Mhm. I'm looking at, we've been having such a wonderful convo, and we did talk a bit about gear, but since we're on the whole visual aspect of it, you mentioned a fancy camera. I want you to tell us all about your fancy camera that you
Did I mention that?
had. You did mention a fancy
So yeah, so so that's one thing. Oren said to me, I started doing these live streams, and I'm one of the type of people that's like, okay, if I watch a video of someone doing a live stream, I'm like, if my stuff doesn't look that good, I'm never gonna be satisfied, and I don't know if it does yet or not because there's levels to this stuff. But he's like, if you're gonna do these videos once, you're gonna do them twice. If you're gonna do them twice, you're gonna probably do them 3 times. So get what you need to make it look good. So I just searched and I said, what's the best camera for this stuff? So initially I bought, I'll switch my camera real quickly. Oops. This was the Papa Look microphone that I used initially, right? And there's another Logitech 1080p microphone camera was what everybody was buying. And then when the pandemic hit, everybody in schools and in business companies were buying this camera, not the Papa Look, but the Logitech, and it was sold out. Couldn't find it anywhere. And the only alternative I could find was this Papa Look one. So at the beginning, I was using this, and it looks a lot better than. Oops, sorry. I'll show you one more camera really quickly. It looks a lot better than that.
Oh my.
Apple MacBook cameras are
Well, the
horrible
shades
for
of
indoor.
2005 over here.
Right. So that's disgusting, right? You don't realize how disgusting it is until you start moving upwards, right?
Mm.
And then I had we froze here. Why did I do that? This one there? Let's try that. I mean, it's not switching right now. 1 second. Everything's doing that.
Magic of multi-camera.
It's like stuck on this camera. I should see Apple just ruined my whole live stream. Let's
Yeah.
try that.
I'll call up Apple in California and let them know.
Something's going on here.
Hmm.
You gotta turn your camera on.
All right, there we go. I don't know why that happened. So then you don't realize like what you're working with until you start moving upwards. So this camera that I'm using now, it's the Sony A6400, and it's people use it for like pictures, but you use it for streaming mainly. And this is what most people use for streaming when you get into the YouTube vlogging world. And I did a lot of research, watched a lot of videos to find out what can I afford, what's the best camera, is it worth buying this? And this camera, it's been a game changer, and you notice people's reaction to it as soon as you get into a Zoom meeting or whatnot. And it makes a difference because it creates a production level. If you can afford it, it's not that expensive, but for some people it's a lot. You know what I mean? Compared to other cameras you can get, it's not crazy expensive. It's most affordable to get you at this level. It's 4K camera, and I can if anybody's in the chat, I can send you a gear list that I have.
Actually, if you send that to me after, I'll put it in the notes of the YouTube video,
Sure, great.
which I'll have up by tomorrow. But you're absolutely right. Like, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter how many people are in the audience. You're playing to one person, you're playing to 500 people. You put your best show on.
Yeah, right. And you gotta it never ends though. You know what I mean? Like the idea is that I'm gonna look at this camera one day. Hopefully, if you grow your stuff and be like, "Oh, that camera was garbage." Like now I got this camera. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay, that camera.
This is a good camera though, but and then there's certain things you need to get this camera to work into your computer. You know what I mean? And that process is a learning curve too, because you're like, why is my computer breathing so heavy? Why is it buckling up or freezing? And you realize you need to get this thing and this thing, and that's where it gets technical, and you need to do your research. But this Sony camera is great. I don't know if I've conquered the settings yet. Sometimes if my picture gets too small, I start to look like I'm sparkly and stuff. But if you have your stuff on full screen, it may not look too bad. So there's things that I'm still learning, but it does create a difference, and because the audience usually doesn't care about the excuses you have for why your camera's not good enough, right? So if you have a great performance, that matters more than anything. But if you have a great performance and then a person with a 4K camera has a great performance, if I had to choose every week who I'm going to watch, I might go to watch the one that looks like more professional, I guess, and sounds just as good. You know what I mean? But then there's a world where you could use this, have the greatest performance ever. I think, apparently Billie Eilish shot her recent music video on an iPhone 12, right? I mean, there's more to that than just her shooting on an iPhone. Like there's color editing, there's grading, there's all kinds of things they do to make that video look like a theatrical piece. But I'm just saying, the possibilities are endless, and it does come down to what you create more than anything. Some people get lost in the gear and feel like if I don't have the greatest gear in the world, I can't do it. But what you're seeing here and all the stuff I'm talking about is a progress, and I you can share that video,
I will.
that YouTube video. It's a progress of learning. It's a progress of saying, okay, I've done this, now I need to step up and upgrade. You know what I mean? And I don't buy things until I can afford them, until I feel like it's an investment worth investing in. And I don't want anybody to feel intimidated by gear because it's a very daunting space
Mm-hmm.
and it's never ending.
No, there's always better gear. And if you wait a year, there's more better gear because
Right.
there's more tech, right? So
Right.
find something that works for you.
Right. And I try to buy a lot of analog stuff so that I can have kind of set it and forget it kind of situations. But that gets increasingly difficult. Apple's every second asking you to upgrade everything, and then your stuff gets out of date and whatever. So we're talking about recording. The computer I'm using right now for this stream, I don't use it to record demos. I use my old computer to record demos because I have Logic Pro 10X. I haven't upgraded my operating system, and it's reliable for that. It works with my Apogee Duet, and I don't have to change anything. So when I record that, it's a little bit slower, but it does the job. And if I keep everything focused on recording, then it pretty much works throughout the whole process. It doesn't really crash on me at all, right?
No crashing is the ideal. We're coming in the last 10 minutes of our convo, my friend. I've had a great time. I'm going to ask about what you got coming up post-pandemic. But first, I posit to you this, and I've been asking artists about it. I think we might see some venues, smaller venues, go for a hybrid type performance, right? Let's say a venue's got like 150 seats. If we sell it out, they say, we'll stream it live as well online. How would you feel about something like that?
I mean, streaming will always be here. I do get a sense that I think the best thing that has come from online streaming and online video connections is working with people, right? So in terms of like, I've had meetings with people that I would have never been able to have meetings with post-pandemic, and those meetings have led to more excitement about what I'm creating because they can see me in my eyes, feel my passion, and get to hear my story about what I'm doing. But I think when it comes to live, we're gonna be surprised how quickly we revert. I believe, at least this is my theory, revert to what we used to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The moment that the general consensus is everything is safe, nobody's going to want to put money into sending their live show streaming because that's another person you have to pay, right? So and then the problem will be is because people were doing streaming before, you know what I mean? Like some people were doing, you'd have companies that would set up live streaming. But the thing with that is like someone's going to do it at like the Grammy stream level. And then these smaller venues, you're not going to be able to compete with that. So it's always like, if I can't do these streams at the level where they look amazing, I think what could happen, and what I've seen done is that they'll stream it later. So an artist, Lauren Daigle, she just did at the Ryman with her friends. It's called Lauren Daigle and Friends or something like that. And she had like 4 other artists, and she performed live. So I think there were tickets sold at this live thing, and it was socially distanced. That's recorded and produced and then streamed live, I think on June 6th or 9th. So I can see that happening if you have production value. But I think personally, and I don't know anything, so don't quote me on this. If you stream live, you may cannibalize some of your touring because I personally wouldn't completely want to do that unless it's a limited VIP tickets. But if anybody can stream live, then I may not go see you when you come to my city. So I've had venues that have done that. I think we did a live stream when we were in Kelowna, BC, and I was opening up for Joey Landreth, and they did a live stream. But it was with the promoter had some kind of setup with that. You know what I mean? There's another venue that did a live stream. So I think people have tried it. I don't see it not happening, but I think a lot of people would be reluctant to do that because it might cannibalize on your ticket sales. You know what I mean?
I think we're also sick of it. we're sick,
I
we're
was going to
sick
say
of
that, right. I don't think people, yeah, right. I think people just want to get out and, as gross as it sounds, we want to sweat on each other.
Mhm.
We want to, have the artists shower us with their spit. I say that. I think that we've been hyper paranoid, hyper neurotic. I think we've been sanitizing to an extreme, and I think a lot of us will still do that. But I think a lot of us are going to be like, we went overboard with that. You know what I mean? And I think let's get back to normal. We'll be more careful about how we wash our hands, but I don't know if I want to sanitize every single thing around me all the time. You know what I mean? And I think even the CDC just came out and said sanitation theater is over the top now and we need to stop it. Nobody knows what to do because everybody's changing their opinions, but I think people want to be beside each other in shows. And I think when you look at sports,
Yes.
that's showing you where the future is. The NBA, FIFA, baseball. We want to just get back to normal. You know what I mean? The number of people that's like, I'm sick and tired of this. We lost 2 years almost of our lives. If you feel that way, I don't feel like I lost 2 years of my life, but let's get back on the road and let's do it in a very extreme way. You know what I mean? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I suspect it's going to be a hug apocalypse. People are going to hug, they're not going to let go, and then nothing will get done for like 2 weeks.
I mean, in the beginning, I think everybody's gonna be like still going like this,
Yeah.
and kind of like don't know. But it just takes more people than everybody else to do one thing. So like if you're in a room and we're all kind of scared at first, but then there's 3 people and then 2 of those people like hug each other, the third person will be like, all right, let me hug. You know what I mean? Like that. It's gonna take some time, but I think we'll be surprised by 2022. I don't think we're going to be having these conversations about. I think people will always utilize streaming. I think vlogging will always be utilized. But I think that touring is going to be like the touring industry has been decimated, so they're going to be aggressive, very aggressive on getting their money back. So
Here's hoping we'll see lots of cool shows then. We have time for one last question from me to you. I want to know, like, you have been releasing some things. I saw it on the YouTube, on Archived, including a song called Kelowna. Did you play that while you were in Kelowna?
I wrote it after. I wrote it actually. Did I play it in Kelowna? I might have actually, but I don't even know. I'm pretty sure I played it in Kelowna, but I didn't release it. It was supposed to be on my last record. I didn't release it. It was just that was one of the songs that was just sitting in my hard drive.
Well,
Pretty sure I played
what
it.
else you got sitting in your hard drive, and what do you have planned post-pandemic that you can tell us about that ain't too secret yet?
So in about 2 weeks, I have a new single coming out on June 18th, and that's a song I'm really excited about. It's a very folky song. It's one of my more up tempo songs in terms of it's a great release for the summer, and then we're working towards an album release this year. I won't say a date yet, just in case things change. But I have an album the one I recorded in Nashville. It's my best project to date. I think it's going to be the project that's going to turn a lot of heads and going to make the Canadian music industry look at me differently because it's an amazing project, and the support we have behind this project, the team we have working on this project, is gonna make people realize, okay, I don't know how I didn't recognize this artist before. So I'm really excited about that. But on June 18th, if you have a chance, just take a listen to on all streaming platforms my new song coming out. I won't say should I say the name? I'm gonna do an announcement on Thursday, I think. So tomorrow. So,
Well, I'll tell everybody listening then. I mean, you got to follow I on all the socials and maybe sign up for his e-newsletter if you want to hear all the latest I.
absolutely. iMusic on pretty much every platform. AHI Music at AHI Music.
Friends, my name is Joel from Folk Music Ontario, and I've been speaking with multi-award nominated and Recording Artist of the Year 2018, My friend, it has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us for the 3rd edition of the Canadian Home Studio Tour. Everyone listening, I will hopefully have this up on YouTube by tomorrow morning and out in our e-newsletter. Thanks again to Canadian Heritage Factor, Ontario Creates, the Ontario Arts Council, and So Can. And especially to you, Thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
Not a problem at all. Have a great day.
All right.